Every time you have a new
Mario Andres Robinson, an American realist painter who deeply connects to American tradition of painting. Like that of Winslow Homer and Andrew Wyeth, Mario is celebrated for his compelling portraits and scenes of American experience. Curiosity, is it always done in one sitting? So you generally take one layer or phase one and then you come back and then you do
2 days.
Yep.
Take that time
Yep.
to plan where things are where shadows are gonna be, where things are gonna go. Moving on to the block end, it's always like one full day depending on how big it is, and maybe part of another day. The middle part is the easy part because after I've worked out all of those little interruptions and shadows and everything, I can put a veneer of the dead pass over it and get that knocked out in a day as well. And then the full color.
What pose the subject needs to be in?
I generally just work from a quick cell phone picture. So if I'm on a scene and I see something, I'll snap it. If I have to set something up, I'll set it up and snap it.
Do you have a routine?
I'm up at 6 o'clock. I'm painting try to be painting by 8 o'clock after I've done, my emails and waiting for people in other parts of the country to wake up, receive those emails, and I'm painting from 8 o'clock to 4:30. When I was younger, I used to paint for 12 hours. I used to paint from 9 o'clock to 9.
What does it take to improve on your drawing skills? Let's say a kid or somebody who is decent enough, how do they get to the next level?
Drawing as much as you can, whether it's something locally or you have to travel to that has open drawing classes where you can draw from the model, whether it's portrait or figure. That's going to inform almost everything you're going to see out in nature or the world.
I'm very fascinated about how you pick a subject, right? Especially how you pick a subject and how it moves people. And I'm sure you keep hearing feedback from there. I was just wanted to hear from your mouth how you get that. I don't know. Maybe I'll hear your version of what is that you're trying to express out of those paintings. And then maybe a few random questions around your process. And then especially for a lot of people, I would like to hear your tips on if somebody wants to pick up watercolor in this day and age, especially with AI, what are the things you think about and how somebody should think about it? So for people who have absolutely no idea who you are, so how do you introduce yourself? And then could you talk about yourself, please?
My name is Mario Andres Robinson. I am an American realist painter. I lean strongly into the American tradition of painting, which includes Winslow Homer and Wyeth and many others. And that's kind of where I hang my hat. Now, within that kind of box, if you will, I like to paint the American experience, and I use watercolor, obviously, which is why I'm here, oil paint, and I used to paint a lot in pastel, and I love drawing the most. Drawing is like my favorite thing to absolutely do. But that's how I introduced myself as American realist painter. And I think your next question probably would be about my background if I was going to guess. So I'll go ahead and fill that in so we can backward to come forward. And I've done so many interviews, I like to make it fresh for people, but this part's kind of the same. So I grew up on the Jersey Shore. I was actually born in the Midwest, and my mother married a gentleman who was in the Air Force, and he was from New Jersey. So he didn't love the whole Oklahoma experience. So after he returned from Vietnam, he moved me, my mom, and my young sister to the Jersey Shore, to Keyport, New Jersey. It was a culture shock for me at 10 years old to go from, as you would imagine, cows and horses and small town middle America living to being able to go to the bulkhead and look across the Raritan and look at the World Trade Center, the Empire State Building, look at cars going across the Verrazano Bridge from Keyport,
Yeah.
and you know, so it was a culture shock. But when you're young, you kind of make adjustments and you make friends and assimilate yourself. And I had a teacher in the fifth grade who said, "We're going to do an open house." And at that time, there was no internet or anything like that. So these were big events for people in the community. So I did about 10 or 12 drawings of American presidents, from like posters with quotes. I did George Washington, Abraham Lincoln. Just, I had never drawn before. I had an interest. I had seen other people draw, other students draw. But it was me and another gentleman, my friend Rob Campbell, and he started scratching away in pen, and he was an athlete, and there was no nuance there at all. I instinctively, since I had an interest in art and I'd seen other people draw, I took the pencil and started trying to capture what I could. So she called over the high school teacher, whose name was Mrs. Elbinger, and she said, "We're going to start a program. We kind of like what you're doing. We put all the drawings up in the hallway, and the parents were like, 'Wow, who did this?' So it was a little bit of a hubbub for me. I'd never really got attention.
Yes.
I was a scrawny little kid and wasn't really that talented with sports or anything. So she had a talented, gifted program. And from sixth grade to all of high school, it was just kind of like me and another student going back and forth to the high school. And then eventually, when I was in high school, I would have a whole period with her, with just the other student. And that was the program. It was just freely letting me draw and just kind of opening my world to a broader vision, through art magazine conversations. So her dream school, turns out, was Pratt Institute, which is in Brooklyn, New York. And she didn't get in, but she said, "You know what? We would have conversations." And she's like, "You should work on a portfolio for our school." And
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea. My parents had no idea. It wasn't their first option. We can get into that. But she took me to Portfolio Day, and we walked around Pratt Institute in Brooklyn. And I was fascinated with the campus, first of all, in the middle of New York City. It was like 25 acres of grass and everything. So to fast forward it, I got accepted to Pratt based on what I was doing in high school and the portfolio we were building. I got a full scholarship to Pratt, which is the only way I probably would have been able to go. But prior to going to art school, my mom, in particular, wasn't that excited. So I went to the Army for 4 years, got the GI Bill, went to art school. And then after that 8-year block of time, I was ready to just kind of get all the voices, all the noise out of my head: drill sergeants, art teachers, professors, parents. And I set out to be a professional artist in 1994. And that brings us to where we are now. So that's the
Now
intro.
now there are so many ways we could go from here. First of all, when you said it's like 50 years, so you're probably about 10 years old, probably when you went to New Jersey, I guess.
Yes,
It must
yes.
be a shock, especially from Midwestern to the food, the people, and everything else. When did you get exposed to other artists? Was it the teacher who got you some exposed to other artists at that stage, or was it books and other things?
There were early, like, I would eat glimpses when I was in Oklahoma as a kid. We had a neighbor. His name was Mr. Bush, and he would just draw Volkswagens. It was the '70s, so he'd draw Volkswagens and kind of airplanes just from his imagination. I was fascinated.
Yeah.
And then I had a student. His name was David. He would draw like Star Wars figures, and I would kind of use my lunch money to kind of to buy those drawings. I was fascinated that a person could do that out of their minds with their hands. You understand that at that time, our entertainment was basically TV here and there, cartoons. It wasn't like it is now. So visual imagery was, for me, a premium. And to see that someone could create their own reality
Hmm.
without having to have, television or movies, it was fascinating. So I would have glimpses of that, never really thinking that I could do it myself. It seemed like such a higher calling. But when I got to New Jersey, it was obviously a little bit more metropolitan, more forward thinking. And my first visions of art was we would get magazines to the house. They would have Norman Rockwell illustrations on the cover, National Geographic. I remember seeing the Sistine Chapel. I think they were refurbishing it, and there was a spread in there.
Mhm.
And I was like, just fascinated
Yeah.
by the colors and the fact that they weren't photographs. It was something magical in that tactile texture and everything that I was seeing in the magazines mostly. And then the Talented and Gifted program, Miss Elvinger would get the Artist magazine, the American Artist magazine, other magazines like that, and I would just pour over them. And then eventually, I just became obsessed with the library. I would go downtown to the library and kind of look at some of the names in artist magazines and then research that. I knew nothing about the Renaissance. My parents were they both worked for the government, and my stepdad was a minister. He was a Baptist minister. So we spent all our time kind of going to church and preparing for church. And so the fact that I came out as wanting to be an artist to them was so foreign, and they were supportive at first. I would win art contests in our area and they would support that. But as I got older and things looked were getting a little bit more serious, more real in a young man's life, they just couldn't make the leap. When they would give me art materials that I requested for Christmas and whatnot. But at a certain point, they were just like, let's guide you into a more, as you
Yeah.
just put out, you mentioned, let's guide you into something more sustainable, something that gets you out of the house and get you off on your own, because we had never seen an artist or anyone make a living through art. So even my major that I declared at Pratt going in was illustration, because my mom was
Mm.
do that, then you can have some kind of a direction. You'll have a direction and they'll give you a check. And I stayed there for about 2 semesters and just fought with professors, and I was constantly in the dean's office of like, you have to do the homework, you have to participate. And so I quickly went to the fine art department.
I mean, do you think about if you're an artist right now, what would you be? Have you thought about that, or
If I wasn't an artist,
artist?
my goal prior to being introduced into art as a career was to be a fireman. We
Mm.
lived across the street from the fire department, and my cousin Jim, he would come to the house in like his outfit,
Yeah.
and we had a couple of policemen in the family as well. And I just loved the civic responsibility, and
Yeah.
it seemed like they had important jobs. And I was like, wow, if I could, I never thought about pay because I was too young, but I was like, wow, if I could kind of contribute
Yeah.
something like that to the community and then there's something about a uniform. I was a Cub Scout when I was younger and a Boy Scout. It was something about getting medals and doing the
Yeah.
thing and then getting the reward. So that was just a furtherance of like that stamp
Yeah.
of if I have a uniform and I'm putting out fires
Yeah.
and I hear that sound go off across the street and they're going to do things. Um, that's what I really wanted to do. I wanted to be a fireman.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Because I think, especially in the 90s, especially with there's no internet, people, at least I, like you, I was always fascinated about being an astronaut or something of the service where it's like, where the reward is immediate. You do something, you're trained for it, and you can see it. And again, you are respected uh, among your peers. I think it's like very few jobs come by where it's like, you're no matter what sector of the society you come through, you're kind of celebrated. It's
Mhm.
just curious because it's like, growing up in India and other places, you're always thinking about plan B. That's why it's just an interesting thing to think about. Was it when did you know after going to that the art, what I'm doing is, was there an aha moment where you felt that I'm really good at this one? Was it at 5 years old, or was it at Pratt School where you started mingling with other artists? When did you yourself know that, okay, this is a correct choice or a good career choice?
Good question. I think I had to get out of the the grips of my family life and people that had no appreciation for the art. No matter how I could have been Da Vinci living in the house, and there would have been no appreciation. So that was the first step of getting away, getting out of the nest where I could be around other like-minded people, and that's what Pratt gave me. And then I was able to not compare but measure my skills
Yeah.
up against people that had already gone out there and made a living in my professors and art history. So as I had that, I could compare and contrast my growth. And I think to answer your question, as an artist, we're always questioning. We're always we're never at the destination. But I had moments, I think, right around maybe 2000 when I was starting to. I think confidence for me. I don't know about other artists, but it comes from my peers. It comes from outside at first. It comes outside in, then I kind of absorb it because there is a certain level of delusion when you're kind of creating something. It's just like, I love this one. I love this one. I love all of them. But I think when I started getting responses from galleries and started being collected by corporate entities in 2000, I think that's when I started kind of seeing the value of what I could actually go out there and do. And then going from there, getting the corporate kind of collections to being in magazines and bringing something unique to the business.
Hmm.
Like, okay, this is something that I have. This is a technique that I've created, and they think it'll be interesting to readers. So right around 2000 is when I had my first corporate collection, my first feature in a magazine. And then from 2000, it just unleashed
Yeah.
potential. I was
Yeah.
like, well, I don't love where I am, but I think people are responding to it. And let's try to be serious about this and take it as far as we can take it.
No, absolutely. Yeah, first of all, I would wish everybody gets a fifth year teacher like you to
Hmm.
motivate, right? Because a lot of people like you are Da Vinci's in home. Nobody would ever know. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah,
But let's. I just want to go one step back and trying to understand how you, because Pratt School, you got into illustration. Just trying to understand. You could have gone into landscapes. You could have gone into architecture. What drew towards portraiture, especially?
that's a good question because I did have a big interest in architecture. My first roommate, he was an exchange student from Asia, and he would do mock-ups and just beautiful illustrations for his architecture class. That's their number one major is
Mhm.
architecture. So they kind of run the yard over there.
Yeah.
So I knew I couldn't do that because again, it was task oriented. It was sitting in an office, being part of a firm. And I do get a lot of questions about my portraits and the vision that I have. So that comes largely from the way I grew up. The adults had the vision. They gave you a certain vision for your life and how the standards that they expected for you. It wasn't like you dictating anything. And if you gave them an answer, let's just say, what are your plans for your life? They would sit us down, and
Mm.
my sisters would give the right answers. I want to go to school for engineering. I want to go to school for business. And I would say art school. And they kind of gently guided me to the army, because that's not a real answer. So I always had this outsider kind of look when I confronted adults or
Mhm.
people at the church or mentors, and not really knowing that I was going to be an artist, but I would record all this in church. when they were sitting around talking, when they would talk to us, they were larger than life. They were like, now I think that people have heroes. They have sports and entertainment, social media. They were my heroes, the people that raised me, the people that poured into me. Even Miss Elvinger, the teacher that I had in
Yeah.
fifth grade, I was always being dictated to and gently guided. So when I was able to pick up a pencil at first, before I was even painting, I would just sketch these beautiful people, and it just fell in my lap. I wasn't like obsessed with portraiture. So I
Mhm.
really didn't have that expansive knowledge of art history, but I wanted to do something to celebrate the people that I saw around me and the places, the ocean and
Yeah.
these places I would frequent. So that's where the portrait thing comes from. I think people might think that I just was like, oh, I just want to paint portraits and be a great portrait artist, but it was really an homage, and it was just right, like writing a letter, like writing a love letter to them. It wasn't like focused on portraiture
Yeah.
per se, but it ended up being something that people kind of took to early in my career.
No, what a beautiful answer. I mean, it's a yeah. It reminds me of how people's experiences shape what they do when they go forward. Like all your experiences that you're carrying in, and then you're kind of putting in into your life experiences into painting. Uh,
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
we can talk about the process. So watercolor, you are painting, especially doing a monochromatic or a value sketch, and then coloring over that.
Hmm.
That's unique to you. I talk to a lot of artists and other things. Nobody they do a value sketch as a reference, but your painting is so completely different. Could you just try to explain for people who don't understand what that process is and then why you do it?
So I come from a background studying art and having a studio practice at school, learning oil practices. And in the summer, I would do pastel painting. My mother really didn't want the fumes and stuff in the house. So I just kind
Mm.
of picked up pastel in the summers. And I would kind of be attracted more so to the deep, dark richness of the pastels or oil paint. You can achieve some very just moody paintings,
Hmm.
complete a range. You can get really high lights and you can get dark darks. And so that's the vision that I had as an artist. Right around, let's say, 2003, I've been doing pastel for about almost 10 years. I started in 94, and then things were starting to catch up with me. My hands were aching because the way I did the pastels with these small little strokes of crosshatch. It was almost like, if you look at my pastels, they were like a screen over an image. It was labor intensive. So I was thinking to myself, this is not sustainable. It was taking me like 4 months to create a painting. So I loved watercolor. I loved looking at it. I heard so many people say it's difficult. And I think that sat in me for a long time, until after almost 10 years, I was like, there's there's got to be an inroad to doing watercolor. So I just picked it up on the side. My gallery at the time in Charleston, I showed them a couple, and they weren't loving it. It was naive, and they had seen so many other things I had done. So I just said, it's now or never. So in 2005, I decided that I'm going to do a full show watercolor,
Hmm.
and did it. We sold 15 before the show even opened, and I had worked that whole year from 2004 to 2005 to create 15 pieces that I could sell, and kind of pulled it off. So to answer your question, coming from oil painting and pastel painting, where you have this broad range of values, coming into watercolor, the first thing I saw when I was researching and trying to look through books with contemporary painters were a lot of wet into wet, a lot of happenstance, a lot of splattering, and that was just useless to me for what I had seen, what I was trying to achieve. So then I went back to the masters, and I said at the top of this, I give a lot of credit to Andrew Wyeth and you know Winslow Homer, because they showed me the possibilities of making this thing like a serious medium where you could put it up against, you know, art that was created with other mediums. So I poured over the images, read books, and decided when I create watercolors, they have to at least match the gravitas of my pastels and oil paintings.
Yeah.
So I started with some really bad watercolors, trying to use Payne's gray to dull it down.
Yeah.
I would gray down the whole paper, lose my lights. And then one day at the kitchen table, it just occurred to me, and this is all on the fly. You know, you have to learn. You have to build it while you're flying, because I had already had a career for 10 years almost. And I was like, what if I piece this all together and choose where my darks are in the moment? And that just started to make more sense to me. Whereas when I laid a transparent layer over what was blocking the paper, it wouldn't pop out as much. So then I was like, Eureka. Okay. So it's just really science, because light is bouncing, hitting the paper and bouncing back through the medium. So what if I use something to block this area as opposed to this area? And then the illusion is it looks brighter, or this looks darker. And I can't tell you, Sunil, how easy that made my life going forward, because you're going into something so naive,
Yeah.
you know, and I would just sit at the time I was kind of renting a room for my pastor, and he would walk by the kitchen table, and he kind of loved what I was doing before. And he was like, Mario, that's not it. That's actually terrible. And I knew that it was terrible, but I was trying to figure things out to get them to a level where I could present them. And, you know, I remember doing my first watercolor and having this naive moment like, oh, wow, this is moving. I didn't even account for the fact that the water was going to be moving on the paper. That's how naive I was. But within a year, I quickly turned that around to where I was tackling other problems, you know.
No, but you sound like a very logical person. There is an artist at heart, but you are willing to give a practical or a logical way of trying to think about it. Is that process evolve further, or are you? I know that a lot of your paintings, I can see that there's that style of having an underlay of a value drawing and a layer of contrast before you put on colors. Has that evolved, or is it still something very close to your heart at the moment?
It as I see it open doors for other people, I kind of see the value in it. However, I don't hold on to it as tight as I used to, as a protective layer.
Yeah.
I'm more expressive, more freewheeling when it comes to the color aspect. When you know, because I work in 3 different parts of the process. So the block in is one that establishes everything. You know, after the drawing, of course, that establishes everything where the values are going to hit. The second one is a dead color pass, which kind of bridges the gap between the blocking and full color application. Once I get to the color application these days, I'm more freewheeling and experimental, using sponges or whatever I have to do to get things on there texturally. As before, I used to use that block in really as a blueprint or a diagram for how the middle passage and the color pass is going to go. So it would keep things tethered and it would be a little tighter, which is was fine for me. But you want to try new things. You don't want to ride a bike. You want to do a wheelie. You want to just, as you get more experience and you get less tethered. I can do things now that I just couldn't do back then, and why not do it if I can do it? Which is just having more fun and being more experimental. So my whole body of work doesn't look the same. So it has a level of growth and a departure from what I was doing in the mid 2000s
Yeah.
to now. So
No,
I am having much more fun. I would say with it because I've said this in the past. I'm not fighting the medium at all, and that's a good place to be. You
no,
know,
I think viewers should go watch your demonstration on YouTube. I'm going to put that link in the description so people can have it. What a fascinating thing! I watched it a couple of times. I just enjoyed it. Uh, it's such a different from what I've been doing for sure. I have some notes. I've been writing down some notes, trying to think maybe I should try that, and then it's just a different, especially the dead man's pass. Using that. Out of curiosity, is it always done in one sitting? So you generally take one layer or phase one, and then you come back, and then you do. How does their painting process step takes?
so the drawing is a day and a half, 2 days.
Yep.
Take that time
Yep.
to plan where shadows are gonna be, where things are gonna go. Moving on to the block end, it's always like one full day, depending on how big it is,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe part of another day. The middle part is the easy part because after I've worked out all of those little interruptions and shadows and everything, I can put a veneer
Yep.
of the dead pass over it and get that knocked out in a day as well. And then the full color, maybe 2 or 3 days.
Yeah. So in
And
terms of the picture, do you take the photos yourself, or how do you select your subject, and then also how do you select what pose the subject needs to be in?
these days, I work from life less than I used to because
Hmm.
life is so busy, not only for myself, but for others. But I generally just work from a quick cell phone
Yeah.
picture. So if I'm on a scene and I see something, I'll snap it. If I have to set something up, I'll set it up and snap it.
Hmm.
Uh, but I've never worked from really good photographs, which works for me because a lot of it is taking things out, editing it, using my own, obviously, color palette is very stringent.
Yeah.
So I don't need a great high res image at all. As far as choosing images, having a pretty big body of work is a good thing, but it's also challenging. So how many times, unless you're Andrew Wyeth and you're able to change it and just really pour something imaginative in it, how many times are you going to paint
Hmm.
that person or that place? So I'm always challenging myself to come up with a different set of circumstances when I'm picking a subject, whether it's a person, place, or thing. And that's the beauty of painting a broad range of subject matter.
Yeah.
Whether it's a studio portrait, an interior, person in nature, an ocean scene, and it's just trying to further my body of work and reach more people. Sometimes I'll wake up in the morning, I'm like, man, I'm not reaching enough young people.
Yeah.
So I'll think of something that interests a person that's not necessarily seeing things through my experiences. Like I talked earlier about the older elders with the church outfits on. Sometimes it's not gonna appeal. So I'm thinking about from the position that I happen to be in, I'm thinking about just about everyone, like approaching my work. And if I am interested in watercolor, what would attract a Sunil to my work? And obviously I'm not gonna guess it on the nail,
Yeah.
but looking behind you, I'm like, Okay. So I see the water. I see a beautiful facade, and it's very, reminiscent of maybe like Sargent or, I just try to reach different people with my work because I am painting for myself and trying to keep myself interested,
Yeah.
but I do want people to be included in the experience that I'm having as a painter. I don't want people to just scroll and be like, oh, I have no interest in that at all. That's not gonna help me,
Yeah.
um, attract people to my work. So I never want to just say, I like this. This is what you're getting. It's almost like you come to my restaurant. It's like, no, I'm cooking this and you're going to eat it. And it's like, well, where is everyone?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. No, no, I completely I get that, and I agree to that sentiment. How does your day look like, Mario? Is it everyday painting, or is do you have a routine? Are you a morning person, afternoon?
Yes, because of the things, the way I grew up, up at 6 o'clock. I'm
Hmm.
painting try to be painting by 8 o'clock after I've done, my emails and waiting for people in other parts of the country to wake up, and receive those emails. And I'm painting from 8 o'clock to 4:30. When I was younger, I used to paint for 12 hours. I used to paint from 9 o'clock to 9. When I was married, I had a wife that told me that that's not going to work. So right around 2014, I stopped 12 hours after. Yeah, and there was a bit of paranoia in working 12 hours because it's like if I just work hard enough and if I just stay ahead of the pack, I'll keep
Hmm.
my edge. But it was a good note to take. I went in kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
I still work 7 hours, 7 days a week. So whether I'm doing a podcast with Sunil or I'm doing a workshop, I just recently did a workshop at Ellis Island or wherever. That's kind of like a good interruption. That's something that I could still consider that as work, as PR.
Yeah.
But my day is just painting 7 days a week. That's all I'm responsible for. That's all anybody wants from me, and that's what I'm going to do
So,
every
do
day.
you take lots of commissions, or how does it work in terms of galleries and other things? Now that you're an established artist, I was
Mhm.
just trying to understand is like, when you are starting, how would one go about introducing themselves to galleries, exhibitions? Do you have any advice where people, even if they have a good body of work, how would somebody break into this market?
I get so many questions. I was just talking to my friend yesterday. I get so many questions about that. And what's so beautiful about being an artist or being a part of a community is we all have something different to offer. We all have different things to give. Some people don't like public speaking. Some people are extroverts. Some people like it. Some people are just kind of like more interested in commission work because that again creates some safety there. Some people aren't. I have never done a commission. I did one for a gentleman that was in George Bush's White House, and it was his grandmother that raised him. So that kind of piqued my interest. It was
Mm.
an older lady with the church hat on. I was like, oh, of course, this is not out of my comfort zone, and I'll do it. But I'm not a person that can take a lot of um, criticism or
Yeah.
demands
Yeah.
from a patron. I've
Mm.
read so many. I think reading stories about uh, John Singer Sargent kind of turned me off because if he couldn't just survive in it, uh, I've never done it. But to answer your question, I think you have to sit with yourself and decide what level of trust,
Mhm.
faith, and confidence do I have in myself. Because everything that we outline as options as artists, if you're a person like myself, they're distractions. Commissions are distractions. Taking a teaching job is a distraction. My linear goal was to be an artist. I had faith, I had confidence that that could take care of me and sustain me. Now I had to sacrifice in the first probably 5 or 6 years and skip a few meals. But if I could do that minus the internet for almost 10 years, I think now an artist can get out there and state their claim and be an entrepreneur, learn about social media channels and outreach and the importance of newsletters. That's my advice. And also my advice is creating quality artwork that you want to purchase, artwork that you want to live with. After that, photograph that artwork in a professional way, present that to people on the internet, because that's where most people are going to see your work. Have beautiful photographs of your work. If you land in a magazine, you want it to be beautiful and representative of what you created. And then just promote the heck out of yourself.
Yeah.
But number one, create beautiful artwork. And I think we go our way to make it complicated.
Yeah. No, but I think the couple of things I want you said about is putting that time to make sure that your portfolio is good, and then making sure that you are proud about. Can I just probe about how do you pick a subject? There's so many different subjects these days. So right now, your answers seem very logical. That you grew up, you understand. For somebody who's starting, what do they need to pick, or how do they go about picking what style of work they need to do, or at least what sort of work they need to be doing?
I would say dig deep and really learn yourself and find out what's interesting to you, what's going to sustain your interest, what's going to make you finish it. And once you've answered those questions, how do I want to represent myself in the broader world? I just talked about trying to reach different people. In the beginning, I was very closed off to the idea that I would paint something that somebody else wanted. I wanted to represent myself, the people that I love, the places that I've spent time in, and then put that out there. So my advice is to get to know yourself and put images out there that truly represent you. And you can't be a better version of someone else. So you can't just look at what worked for somebody else and just become an echo chamber for that person. And I think people respond to the genuine article. So when you're looking at somebody's work, I hear a lot of names repeating in the watercolor world. You know the names. I don't have to tell you. So we have the old masters, we have the American masters that I put forward, and then we'll have some contemporary people, and the names just go around and around and around. But those people, at their best, were genuinely themselves. And I think that's something that we kind of gloss over when we're trying to talk about technique or color palettes or, I think people can smell that on you. If you are genuinely being yourself. I'm a shining example, Sunil, of a unique character in the middle of this milieu who is genuinely myself.
Yeah.
Even if I wanted to try, it wouldn't work and I couldn't pull it off. Mario Robinson is, with the exception of, wow, it looks like Dean Mitchell. But Mario Robinson is, when I step into a room, it's a very unique situation I have going on. And if you can channel that inside yourself and be that and have the confidence to be in the rooms that I'm in, if I can do it, anybody can absolutely do it. But be yourself. And the temptation is, when you're going into other rooms, is to kind of be a little bit of an imposter, a little bit of a schmoozer. But be yourself. Be yourself. Everything will take care of itself if you're doing that. So choosing imagery that is important to you when you're trying to enter a business like this, you're offering something that no one else has put forth yet, because it's you, it's unique, it's your voice. So dig deep and find that, because I know scrolling is tempting to be like, oh, screenshot. I was, just a quick story on this note, quickly. I was judging a contest for Winsor Newton, and I'm scrolling, and someone had entered a watercolor of a painting that I did of my Aunt Dolores. She had a houndstooth jacket on. It was in profile, and he had named it the Old Lady. Now, mind you, when I painted her, she was only in her 40s. He wouldn't know that, but her hair was gray to match the houndstooth coat. And I'm looking at it, and I had to report that. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And it was badly painted, because that's not your story. That's not the love that's living within your heart. I painted that out of love. So just be yourself and it won't backfire. That's
I mean,
all.
and also the audacity to enter a competition plagiarizing somebody else's work. It's just, I mean, I don't know what people think sometimes, but it's true about what you said. It is a challenge, and I am have to stop myself from constantly browsing, looking at others' work, and print screening some of the works and other things. But as I said, it's like I have to catch myself. Uh,
Hmm.
but Mario, can we talk about how strong your drawings are? How would one get to your level? What does it take to improve on your drawing skills? Let's say a kid or somebody who is decent enough. How do they get to the next level?
The first thing is drawing as much as you can, whether it's something locally
Hmm.
or you have to travel to that has open drawing classes where you can draw from the model, whether it's portrait or figure.
Hmm.
That's going to inform almost everything you're going to see out in nature or the world. And I understand, like I said, the convenience of drawing from a reference. But I think before you become addicted to that convenience and the flatness of a photograph, spend time painting or drawing from life. That's how I accrued my skills because I just didn't have the option to work a lot from reference and stuff like that. It was drawing from life, and again, simplifying the information. If I am talking about drawing is just a series of shapes and how those shapes are informed by light. So you don't have to draw people all the time when you're practicing, but practice your hand-eye coordination. If you are looking at something, be shape oriented. There's ovals, there's triangles, there's rectangles, there's squares, and just try to see those repeating patterns in whatever you're drawing and simplify that information, because when you're looking at something, even if it's in a reference, you're going to look at just almost everything. There's going to be a light source that's swirling around things, but just simplify the information and slow down. There's nothing wrong with slowing down. Right now, there's probably a premium in finishing things and having some fresh information to get clicks and likes. But if you slow down and really observe something, when I'm teaching and I'm demonstrating something, I'll let them know that when I start the drawing, it's going to take a while. So maybe you want to check back, because if you're standing behind me, it's like watching water boil. But I'm measuring everything when I'm doing a portrait. I'm gonna lock in, you know, where the eye set, where the center is, and I'm just gonna just build out from there. I like constructing. I'm not a person that rushes through things. So I think just drawing from life, getting away from the photos as much as you can when you're
Mhm.
trying to build those skills, and then just see things as shapes and slow down. Just slow down and take your time and think about what you're doing.
So, is there any art book or artist you recommend to practice from? And then also, do you have a preference of what paper and what medium, or a paper or a pen or a pencil you would encourage people to start with?
That second one is an easy one, but the first one is I recommend. When I taught at the New York Academy of Art, I taught drawing three, and the book that I recommended was the Bark plates. Now,
Okay.
what Charles Bark did was, he'll have a plate where he simplifies the line drawing, whether it's a cast um, or whatever. He'll do the simple outline of it.
Hmm.
No, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the second one will be rendering it. So you see the simplicity of the lines and how he's taken all the information and flattened it. And then he'll render and put the shading in. And it's difficult. Like the students took it and I'd let them choose their favorite bark. They downloaded it from the internet. Their first drawing already had rendering. And I'm like, it's so hard to, it's like playing a scale. If you know all that information about a piano, you're going to give me chords, you're going to give me all that. Simplify it and just hit one at a time and let that ring in your ear. So the Barg plays. Charles Barg that's the go-to, because you can see how simple and how we like to trick and how we confuse ourselves sometimes in that information. The second one is, as brand ambassador for Winslow Newton, I use the Winslow Newton graphite. I use their paper. They have quality products. So you can take all that quality where you're starting from the drawing phase, and you can just slowly move into the painting process. So my watercolors are executed on 300-pound always, because they can take a really good beating. 300-pound cold press watercolor paper by Winslow Newton, of course.
Yeah. Now, Winslow Newton's brush is manufactured, I think it's called the Crown brushes. I think they are about an hour and a half from where I am right now. So I have sent them a couple of emails to see if I can do a shoot in their workshop, so that it's going to be an interesting, because there is a Saunders watercolor paper close to where I am, about 2 hours, and then there's a lot of history, especially in France and other things. There are lots of manufacturers for those kind of things. Hopefully they will come back saying that it's okay. Then I want to go is shoot a process about how they make Winslow Newton brushes and other things. Yeah.
Those Series 7s over at the Crown, yes, they are. That's what I use. Those sables are just. I'm biased.
No, you're biased for a reason. They are good quality, and that's probably is one of the oldest manufacturer of art material, Winslow Newton. I think that place is very, very old. Especially most of the things in Europe is very old. They're like,
yes, yes.
So absolutely. While we're talking about particular materials and other things, Winslow Newton, is there any particular pigments you use more and more? What do you go back to, or because of the different skin tone and other things, but few of the pigments which you use over and over again?
So I stick with Winslow Newton because of that history you just talked about, and the lack of temptation to juice things up, to have a lot of different things, to keep up with this growing art market. So the colors are tried and true. They are right there in the middle.
Yeah.
And so for my flesh tones, I'm just a big believer in red, yellows, and blues. So my flesh tones, for lighter flesh tones, I love, love, love the permanent rose. It's like a powdery, beautiful pink.
Yeah.
And like a raw sienna kind of warms that whole thing up, and then a little bit of Payne's gray at the end. And for darker flesh tones, a twin to that would be cad red, cad yellow, and ultramarine blue. So those red, yellow, and blue combinations, that's what's on my palette, whether it's nature, flesh tones, just trying to get those red, yellow, and blue combinations kind of mixed up where I can just be creative is where it's at. But I think obviously my blocking is burnt umber and French ultramarine blue. And that's just my staple. That's just, it's just so good. But the colors are they're just, I love it that there's such a lineage. I was talking to a really good friend of mine, Victoria Wyeth. So I asked her periodically questions about Andy, and she was doing a demonstration, a talk for the Brandywine online, and they were talking about visiting his studio, and the conservator said that she pulled his toolbox open and said, "What did I see?" Winsor & Newton just everywhere, all Winsor & Newton. And that makes sense to me because his palette was muted, but it does have an explosion of color when it needs it. But you can mute these colors down so easily because they're just like middle of the road. They're not explosive when they don't really need to be with juiced up color.
Yeah.
So that's.
But also Winsor Newton, because they've been for so long in the market, that's probably one of the most easily available professional pigments for watercolor. So because growing up in India, there were, when you think about foreign brands, Winsor Newton was the only one which were available back there. There
Really?
were a few places, there were Rembrandts, but other things, but it's like, Winsor Newton was like, it's like a staple. And I think that's another reason why a lot of people know Winsor Newton is about the history. It is available. Any shop you go, you can buy Winsor Newton, right? But these days, again, Daniel Smith and other things, they have like
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of different colors, and every tone you think of, there is so many players. Especially, I feel it's like the last 5 years, the number of brush, pigment, and paper companies have
Mm.
is like mushrooms. There are like so many these days. And uh, what about teaching? Especially, you teach a lot of people. So, what are the most common things you see people, the mistakes people make, and then what would you advise to those people? We talked about the subjects. I think it's very you answered it really well about making sure that subjects are picked. But generally, people at the moment, including me, we have lack of patience and other things. So, what are the common things you see people who come in they're struggling with?
So many. Because watercolor is something that the reputation coming through the door is
Mhm.
already defeatist. So that's the first thing I have to confront. It's not even the painting part; it's the confidence part.
Yeah.
The fear. I have to kind of quell the fear, and that comes through the demonstration to show them that there's no boogeyman, there's no looking over your shoulder, but you do have to learn the rules of engagement. So once you learn those rules of engagement, what I would say what to do and what not to do. Um, I think the first thing is not people not understanding that working flat is not so much easier than working upright, which is the way I work because gravity is pulling things down and not letting it kind of stain and make a mess, a muddled mess on your paper. That's the first thing. Second thing is not being able to understand how important timing is.
Mhm.
So, as you know, you paint watercolor. If you go to put another color into something that you've already applied too early, you're going to get a bloom, right?
Yep.
If you wait too late to try to maybe put a shadow down and turn the foam on an arm, it's going to just be a straight line. You can't work wet into wet that way. So the timing is something that you have to accrue from experience. You can't just
Mhm.
walk in the room and know that timing. So number one, how do I not get a bloom? Number two, how do I avoid hard edge? That's like 101 right there.
Yeah.
Okay. The second thing is not understanding the water to watercolor relationship, how instrumental water is to softening things
Mhm.
or just kind of working with the watercolor to make it do what you're setting out to make it do. So I've seen people have something going on where they're trying to correct it or soften something and just absolutely put water right into something where the watercolor is trying to settle itself and
Yeah.
wonder why it's becoming a mess. So not understanding the chemistry, the science of it.
Yeah.
And this is not anyone's fault. It's just, I'm glad I'm there to suggest that this is how you avoid the frustration. So those two things are the big things, the blooms and hard edges,
Yeah.
which are very distracting. and not understanding the destructive force of the water.
Yep.
The third one, the last one I would say, is how important the drawing is. Not understanding that this is what that infrastructure, that skeleton underneath the watercolor is really what people are going to see. You're filling in a drawing. If you're going to do my style, if you're going to do it realistically, the way I'm trying to get you to do it, just rushing through it and then just trying to think you can make edits later is fool's gold. Take your time, draw it. A lot of people, the energy in the room when I'm teaching, or probably anyone's teaching, is to want to paint. So my workshops or classes aren't for everybody, because I'm going to try to get you to draw it as efficiently but accurately as possible. Because normally when I'm teaching, it's in a place like the Art Students League or places like that, where there's a watercolor is in the minority. They're doing oil paintings, doing very realistic renderings of the figure and stuff like that. So I'm trying to get people to think about it in a classical sense. Take your time and draw it. That's very difficult, because people they really want to get to the painting stage. Then they'll say, okay, am I ready? I'm like, you've been doing it for 20 minutes. That's absolutely no. So those three things. Those things.
But I feel it's like, of the three things, the first two things are probably quicker to learn. Where you do enough, then you can understand. I think the third one, for some people, takes a lifetime to master the third one. Can we just briefly talk about setbacks? Do you have any paintings which doesn't come or doesn't fit what's in your head? Or most of the paintings, what you do, come out okay? So are you in that phase? Or if it's not, what's your self motivation talk look like?
Yeah, going into each painting, I have an expectation, and I have to just kind of forget about what I've created either in the recent past or in the past, and kind of understand and realize that I have to earn it every time. So going into it, I'll have a flash of what it should be or what I want it to be. And I kind of know, after getting into the block in part, where it's not exactly what I had in my head, it's not matching, and I'll abandon it. I don't have a problem with abandoning something. And I did that last week. I was working on something that was just too big and too ambitious. It was like a full sheet. I was working on it. It was an image from my Ellis Island thing that I had going on. And it was taking, after 3 days, it just, the energy wasn't there. And I'm a big believer in energy. I'm a big believer in, this feels great. Even though there's trials and tribulations, it's going to be worth it to finish it. And if the energy just peters out, then I'm done with it. Even though I've invested a good amount of drawing in everything I do, measuring, it was like an architectural thing, measuring, because I just don't want to do something that I'm not excited about. And they all can't be winners, which is why I'm so proud of the work that I do release, because I know that it's not just a vanity thing because it came off my hand. It's something I really believe in, that I stand by, that I'm proud to show. So if you see it, if anyone sees it, I'm proud of it. I'm not saying it's the best. I'm just saying it speaks to me, and I hope that someone else can see it, with their eyes and appreciate it. But there's so many, because it's watercolor too, Sunil. It's like you're not totally in control of this thing.
No, but I'm so glad that you mentioned that. I think people should just pause and then listen, that it is a part of painting. Sometimes it doesn't work out. You just have to abandon it and then start again. Do you have burnouts? What do you do if you're like bored, or you're like, I got to do something else? Is there a way out? Do you have a routine or sports or something you do?
I used to take walks on the beach or on my cruise or something like that, as lately, I don't have a lot of. I used to play tennis a lot too, but
Mm.
as I kind of go deeper into this,
Mm.
time is just a premium, and there's always something to fill my time with as far as the industry or
Yeah.
resting from painting. Resting these days is once 4 o'clock gets here and I wash my brushes out, it's kind of time to kick back and rest. I just don't have a lot of energy as I get older to do a lot of other things, which is fine. It's a good trade off,
Yeah.
because when I was younger, not knowing how this thing was going to shake out, I was a little bit more social and had a little bit more of a life on the other side of it. But now it's totally sold out and committed to this thing. So this doing something like this is more like
Listen, I am very appreciative of you. I was so thrilled that you accepted the invitation. I am conscious that it's just crossed an hour. Are you okay for a couple more questions, quick questions, and then we can wind it up?
sure, of course, of
So,
course.
in terms of what would you rank? You want to paper, pigment, brush. How do you rank them? So, in your order, what's the most important thing you think?
I would say brush,
Brush, okay.
paper,
Hmm.
and pigment.
Okay.
The brush, I have such an intimate connection to my
Hmm.
Series Sevens. They're like an extension of my hand. I know how they're going to react. I know what they're going to do if I twirl it.
Yeah.
They're there for me
Hmm.
in moments where there's a high level of expectation from people watching me paint
Yeah.
in public and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I'm not guessing. They're the thing that's connected to me. I know the
Yeah.
feel. I can close my eyes. You put another brush in my hand. I know the lacquer. I know the grip. Um, the paint. I could probably tell that it's not Winsor Newton
Yeah.
pretty easily, but could I get another result? I haven't tried it, but maybe. And the paper, depending on how I treat it, and if I'm kind of being respectful, I can get
Yeah.
there. But the brushes are literally like breathing,
Yeah.
you
So,
know.
but it's very interesting, right? There are a lot of artists. I kind of ask this question. So, not
Mm,
everybody answers the same. Some people prefer paper first, brush, and pigment. That's like the most common order. Brush usually are number second and number third. I think you're the first artist who said brush number one. I mean,
mm,
that's the beauty about it, right? There's more than one way to skin a cat, and it's
that's
interesting to hear.
that's
What about the state of current world right now, with especially with the AI? I don't know how much you're following AI and the other image generating softwares these days. So, are you positive about it, or how do you think about this AI at the moment?
I'm positive about it. I think there's every time you have a new technology,
Hmm.
it's like the end of the world. At first, people were explaining it to me, and I was like, "Oh, that's crazy. That's not good. That's going to take jobs. They're stealing images from artists."
Sorry. Yes, sir.
Oh, you're fine. But I think that it's just a tool. It's an option. You don't. It's not something that you have to do. It's like ChatGPT. You don't have to use it. And I think that it's its own thing.
Mhm.
It's not going to be able to do what I do. It's not taking. It's not really taking away from me. And that's. I think it's really going to expose the value of what we do as well. You can look at something and tell there's something about it. Your human intuition can look at something and tell that it's not human.
Yeah.
And if you look for something that's not human, that's for you. But I think that we all kind of have decisions to make, and if we want to involve
Yeah.
ourselves in that, it's quite fine. I think the only pushback is if people are using it and they're being honest about the use of it,
Yeah.
and and that. But I'm old school, Sunil. I'm just doing my
I think it's
AI.
very, yeah. It is the old school way which works. I think you got to dedicate yourself. Uh, so, Hey, do you want to talk about what's going on at the moment? Any exhibitions people need to be aware of? I know you got a wonderful watercolor book. Do you want to just talk about your watercolor book or any exhibitions people need to know?
Yes, I'm excited. My book, I wrote it it was released in 2016, and it had a good run. And then the company was purchased by Fiden Press, and they decided after 3 years to bring it back and offer it again. So it's available worldwide.
Yeah.
You can go to Fiden Press. You can go to my website. You can go to Amazon and get my book, Lessons in Realistic Watercolor. I think it's helpful to have different voices in your ear if you're learning. My book obviously is going to be geared towards somebody who maybe came to the medium from a different medium like I did,
Hmm.
or is just really obsessed about drawing and classical ideas and process. It's not just a one shot deal.
Yeah.
So I think that's who it appeals to. So I'm glad to have the book back out there for like minded people that want to have that experience. My other thing that I'm excited about is being affiliated with the Save Ellis Island group,
Hmm.
who is trying to kind of refurbish and rebuild the legacy of Ellis Island on the New Jersey side. So I'm going to be doing some really exciting projects with them that I'm going to be announcing in probably next week. And from that, we'll have some exciting projects. But I've been learning a lot about Ellis Island and Statue of Liberty and a lot of things that have kind of affected our country, the immigrant experience. So the images that I'm creating from there are just an addendum to what I've been doing as far as capturing the American experience.
No,
So
but it's an interesting time, especially in US right now, with
mhm.
immigrations and other things. So it's yeah,
Yes,
it's a different topic. But again, what's the best way for people to reach you, Mario?
the best way is my website. It's marioarobinson.com.
Mhm.
And my Instagram is Mario A. Robinson. Same thing with Facebook, it's Mario A. Robinson. And send me a message, contact me through my website, and that's it. I'm out there. And I respond. People are just always writing me.
You do, yes. I'm the witness right here. So I am so glad. Any closing thoughts, Mario?
I would just double down on what I said. If you're an artist and you are serious about trying to either enter the market or you are right out of school, look within. There's a lot of information on these social media sites and in the world.
Mhm.
Just try to drill down into your heart and soul and find out who and what you are, and see if you really are an artist, and see what you have, see if you have what it takes. And if the answer is yes, pursue it with all your might, all your passion. And this is a very viable option as far as not only being creative, but being a professional and earning a living for yourself. So I am a true shining example of that, hopefully.
You are, and what a pleasure. Mario, again, I have to thank you so much for being a part of this.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sunil, for the time and having me. And good luck with this new enterprise. I'm loving it, and I'll keep watching it and learning about other artists. I love seeing the different expressions with watercolor. So
No,
thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.